Salahuddin Ayyubi, the name that echoes through centuries as a symbol of courage, justice, humility, and unmatched bravery, was not born into a royal palace, nor raised as a conqueror from childhood. Instead, he was shaped by character, molded by faith, and destined for greatness. Born in 1137 in Tikrit, a small town near the Tigris River in present-day Iraq, Salahuddin came from a Kurdish family serving under the powerful Zengid dynasty, and from the very beginning his destiny was tied not to wealth or luxury but to service, loyalty, and the sword. As a child he was quiet, observant, gentle, and unlike typical warriors, more interested in knowledge, governance, and religion than war, yet fate had plans far bigger than his early personality ever suggested. When his family moved to Mosul and later Damascus, Salahuddin came under the mentorship of his uncle Shirkuh, a fierce and loyal general of the great ruler Nur ad-Din Zengi. Under Shirkuh, Salahuddin learned strategy, discipline, leadership, and the harsh truths of the battlefield. Step by step, he transformed from a thoughtful scholar to a capable warrior who understood that power meant nothing without righteousness. The turning point came when Salahuddin and Shirkuh were sent to Egypt, a land drowning in political chaos, and the last stronghold of the weakening Fatimid Caliphate. After a series of battles, betrayals, and shifting alliances, Shirkuh became the ruler of Egypt, but fate struck again. Only weeks later, Shirkuh died, and suddenly the mantle of leadership fell onto the reluctant shoulders of Salahuddin. At just 31 years old, Salahuddin became the vizier of Egypt, a position of immense power, and instead of using it for personal gain, he began uniting Egypt under Sunni rule, restoring justice, rebuilding armies, and preparing the Muslim world for the greatest struggle of the era, the battle against the Crusaders. With Nur ad-Din's death, the Muslim lands again slipped into division, and Salahuddin realized that without unity, the Crusaders would swallow every city of the East. So he began his life's greatest mission, uniting Egypt, Syria, Mesopotamia, Yemen, and parts of North Africa into one powerful force. His rise was not through tyranny but through wisdom, diplomacy, and brilliant strategy, winning hearts before conquering lands. By 1186, Salahuddin had succeeded where countless rulers had failed. He had forged a united Muslim empire strong enough to challenge the Crusader kingdoms. And then came the moment that would define history forever, the Battle of Hattin in 1187. The Crusaders, led by the reckless King Guy of Jerusalem and the brutal Reynold de Chatillon, marched deep into the desert under the burning sun. Salahuddin, with unmatched military genius, trapped them near the volcanic hills of Hattin, cut their access to water, encircled their armies, and delivered a crushing defeat that broke the backbone of Crusader power. Reynold, infamous for attacking Muslim caravans and even insulting the Prophet, was executed by Salahuddin himself, a symbolic act of justice. King Guy, however, was spared, showing the world the difference between justice and cruelty. With the Crusader forces shattered, Salahuddin marched toward the greatest prize of all, Jerusalem, captured by the Crusaders nearly 90 years earlier in a bloodbath that shocked the world. But Salahuddin was not a man of vengeance. When Jerusalem surrendered after a short siege, the world expected another massacre. Instead, Salahuddin showed the highest form of humanity. He forbade killing, protected churches, allowed Christian civilians to buy their freedom, and even ransomed thousands with his own money. The same city the Crusaders had taken by slaughter, Salahuddin reclaimed with mercy. This moment forever immortalized him, not just as a conqueror but as a moral giant. But his challenges were far from over. Europe, shocked by the loss of Jerusalem, launched the Third Crusade, led by the legendary Richard the Lionheart. Two titans of history, Salahuddin and Richard, clashed in battles marked by respect, strategy, and unbreakable will. At Arsuf, the Crusaders won a costly victory, yet Salahuddin's forces remained strong. For months, the two leaders engaged in war, diplomacy, and mutual admiration. Despite being enemies, they exchanged gifts, healed each other's wounded, and exhibited a level of chivalry rarely seen in history. In the end, neither could destroy the other. Richard lacked the strength to retake Jerusalem, and Salahuddin refused to allow the holy city to fall again. Finally, a truce was signed. Christians could visit Jerusalem safely. Muslims retained control, and peace returned after years of relentless war. Salahuddin's health, however, began to fade. After years of traveling across vast lands, leading armies, governing empires, and carrying the hopes of millions, his strength weakened. In 1193, at the age of 55, Salahuddin Ayyubi, the conqueror of Jerusalem, the unifier of the Muslim world, the warrior of justice, passed away in Damascus. And here lies his final lesson: the man who ruled an empire stretching across continents, who commanded armies feared by kings, who restored Jerusalem, died with almost no money in his treasury. He had given away his wealth to the poor, to soldiers, to widows, to orphans. His funeral had to be funded by others, proving that Salahuddin lived and died not for gold or glory, but for faith, justice, and humanity. Today, centuries later, his legacy lives on not only in history books, but in the hearts of people across the world. Christians admired him, Muslims revered him, and even his enemies respected him. He showed that true power lies not in cruelty but in character, not in fear but in fairness, not in revenge but in mercy. From the deserts of Hattin to the walls of Jerusalem, from the courts of Egypt to the battlefields of Syria, Salahuddin Ayyubi stands tall as one of history's greatest leaders, a warrior king who fought with courage, ruled with justice, and conquered with compassion. His story is not just the tale of a ruler. It is the legacy of a legend who proved that greatness is not measured by the throne one sits on, but by the values one stands for.